The crystal champagne flutes clinked merrily around the elegantly appointed private dining room of the Westbrook Country Club. Sophia Carter sat rigidly in her seat, her untouched salmon entree growing cold before her. At 58, she still maintained the graceful posture that had been drilled into her since childhood. Her silver-streaked brown hair swept into a modest updo that complemented her pale blue dress. A dress she had spent 3 weeks searching for, wanting to look perfect for her only daughter's rehearsal dinner. But perfection, it seemed, was beyond her reach tonight. Across the table, her daughter Amber's face was flushed with anger, her voice rising with each word. "You always do this. You can't help yourself, can you?" 28-year-old Amber, radiant in her pre-bridal glow just moments ago, now resembled the tantrum-throwing teenager she had once been. "Sweetheart, I was only trying to help with the seating arrangements," Sophia said softly, conscious of the 30 pairs of eyes now fixed on their exchange. Mrs. Atwood mentioned her husband's wheelchair. "Stop!" Amber slammed her hand on the table, causing the silverware to jump. Her fiancé, Blake, a handsome investment banker with family connections stretching back to Boston's earliest days, placed a restraining hand on her arm, but she shook it off. "This is exactly why I didn't want you involved in the planning. You micromanage everything. You embarrass me." Sophia felt her cheeks burning. She glanced apologetically around the table, noting Blake's parents' tight expressions and the uncomfortable shifting of guests in their chairs. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," she suggested, half rising from her seat. "There's nothing to discuss." Amber's voice had taken on a coldness that Sophia had never heard before. "I want you to disappear from my life, Mother. Just go. You are the worst mother anyone could have. I've been tolerating you for years, but I'm done." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the servers who had been circulating with wine bottles froze in place. Sophia felt as though she was suspended in amber, trapped in a moment of perfect humiliation. Her throat closed, her vision blurred, but decades of self-discipline kept her upright, kept the tears from falling. With deliberate movements, she placed her napkin beside her plate, picked up her small evening bag, and stood. "I believe I should go," she said, her voice remarkably steady. "Blake, Mrs. and Mr. Thornton, thank you for your hospitality." She made it to the parking lot before her hands began to shake so violently that she dropped her keys twice before managing to unlock her car. Only when she was safely inside did she allow a single sob to escape. "The worst mother anyone could have," she whispered to herself, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her eyes, hazel and still bright despite the fine lines surrounding them, looked back at her with a question she couldn't answer. Until suddenly, she could. A clarity she hadn't felt in years washed over her. For 28 years, her life had revolved around Amber. Every decision, every sacrifice, every penny saved. All for her daughter. And this was her reward. She straightened her shoulders, wiped away the lone tear that had escaped, and started the car. By the time she pulled into the driveway of her modest colonial home, the home she had maintained while letting Amber and Blake live rent-free in the more prestigious suburban property she'd inherited from her parents, Sophia Carter had made a decision. It was time to reclaim her life. Dawn found Sophia at her kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork. Her reading glasses perched on her nose, she methodically worked through a list she had created overnight. Wedding venue, caterer, florist, photographer. $78,000 worth of contracts, all in her name, all cancelable with varying penalties. One by one, she made the calls. "Yes, I understand the cancellation fee. Please charge it to the card on file." Her voice remained pleasant, professional, the same tone she had used during her 30 years as a school administrator. By noon, she had systematically dismantled what would have been the society wedding of the season. When her phone began buzzing with Amber's calls, she silenced it. The text messages that followed, ranging from confused to frantic to furious, went unread. Instead, Sophia opened her laptop and navigated to her bank's website. A few clicks later, she had transferred the remaining wedding funds, money she had saved over decades of careful budgeting, back into her personal account. Next, she called her attorney. "Martin, I need to put the Beacon Hill property on the market immediately. The house where Amber and Blake are living." Martin Sanders had been her father's attorney before becoming hers. "Sophia, are you sure about this?" "Quite sure." She ran her finger along the edge of her teacup. "They have no idea I own it. Father left it to me when he died, and I've maintained the fiction that they're house-sitting while the owners are abroad. They never questioned why they weren't paying rent in one of Boston's most expensive neighborhoods." Sophia's laugh held no humor. "Amber has always had a remarkable ability to accept good fortune without question." After hanging up, Sophia moved to the small study off the living room. Her father's old roll-top desk stood against one wall, its surface cluttered with the artifacts of her life. Photographs of Amber at various ages, school certificates, a dried corsage from her prom. She began clearing these away, placing them in a cardboard box. In the bottom drawer, secured with a small key she kept on her keychain, was a leather portfolio her father had given her shortly before his death 3 years ago. "There's information in here you might need someday," he had said cryptically. "About David." David. Even thinking her ex-husband's name sent a flutter of old pain through her chest. He had walked out when Amber was 5, leaving nothing but a brief note saying he needed freedom. No contact information, no goodbye to his daughter, no further communication. Sophia had never opened the portfolio, unwilling to reopen those wounds, but now she untied the leather binding and spread the contents across the desk. What she found stole her breath. Bank statements, newspaper clippings, private investigator reports, a birth certificate for a boy named Connor, born 2 years after David left them, a marriage certificate dated 1 year after his disappearance. And most damning of all, internal corporate documents showing that David had embezzled $425,000 from his company before vanishing. He hadn't just abandoned them. He had stolen nearly $500,000, created a new identity, and started a fresh family in Scottsdale, Arizona. "Oh, Dad," Sophia whispered, understanding now why her father had been so insistent on supporting her and Amber after David left. He had known the truth, but had protected her from it, helping her maintain the fiction for Amber that her father had simply gone away. She had worked so hard to shield Amber from pain, taking on extra jobs, moving to a smaller house, telling her daughter that her father had just needed time and might come back someday. All while David Reeves, now calling himself Daniel Reynolds, raised another family in desert luxury. Night had fallen by the time Sophia finished going through everything. She sat back, rubbing her tired eyes, then reached for her phone. She had 13 missed calls and 27 text messages from Amber, the last one reading, "Blake's parents are furious. You're ruining everything. Call me now." Sophia set the phone down without responding and went to make herself a cup of tea. Tomorrow would be soon enough to set the next phase of her plan in motion. "You've done what?" Amber's screech echoed through the phone, forcing Sophia to hold it slightly away from her ear. In the background, she could hear Blake's lower tones, trying to calm his fiancée. "I've cancelled the wedding arrangements," Sophia repeated calmly. "And I've listed the Beacon Hill house for sale. My real estate agent will be contacting you about showing times." "What are you talking about? That's not your house to sell." "Actually, it is." Sophia took a sip of her morning coffee, gazing out at her small but well-tended garden. "The house belonged to my father. He left it to me in his will. I've been allowing you to live there rent-free for the past 3 years." The silence that followed was deafening. That's impossible," Amber finally stammered. "The owners are in Europe. We send emails to them all the time about maintenance issues. You send those emails to an account I created. I've been handling all the repairs and bills." Sophia felt a strange lightness as she spoke truths that had been buried for years. "I thought having that house would give you and Blake a good start." Why would you lie about something like that? Would you have accepted it if you'd known it came from me, the mother you've been embarrassed by since your teenage years? More silence. Then, in a smaller voice, what about the wedding? I've paid all the cancellation fees. There's nothing left to worry about. Nothing to... Amber's voice broke. Mom, we have 200 guests coming in 3 weeks. Blake's family has business associates flying in from Europe. This is insane. Perhaps. Sophia traced the rim of her coffee cup with one finger. But I think it's time for you to learn that actions have consequences, Amber. You told me to disappear from your life. I'm simply respecting your wishes. I was angry. People say things when they're angry. Yes, they do. But some things, once said, cannot be unsaid. Sophia took a deep breath. You have 30 days to vacate the Beacon Hill property. I've emailed you information about your father that you should know. Goodbye, Amber. She ended the call as Amber began to protest, then turned off her phone entirely. The quiet that followed felt sacred somehow, like the silence in an empty church. She spent the rest of the day sorting through her home, separating her belongings into 3 categories: keep, donate, sell. By evening, her living room was a maze of labeled boxes, and her realtor had called with news of 3 interested buyers for the Beacon Hill property, all willing to pay well above asking price in Boston's competitive market. That night, Sophia sat on her back porch with a glass of wine, watching fireflies rise from her garden. For the first time in decades, she allowed herself to think about what she wanted rather than what Amber needed. The answer came with surprising clarity: peace, space, a fresh start, somewhere she could wake up to the sound of waves. She had always loved the Carolina coast. Her family had vacationed there when she was a child, and she had taken Amber there several times before her daughter decided that European trips with friends were more appealing. Sophia pulled her laptop closer and began searching for properties in coastal Carolina towns. With the proceeds from both houses, she could afford something modest but charming, perhaps even right on the beach. By midnight, she had contacted a realtor in Beaufort, North Carolina, and scheduled a trip to view properties the following week. Before going to bed, she spent an hour creating a portfolio for Amber. Copies of all the documents about David, along with a brief factual account of what she had discovered. To this, she added a small box containing a single photograph. Amber at age 5, sitting on David's shoulders at the beach, both of them laughing in the sunshine, and a handwritten note. Every story has origins beyond our control. Every life offers chances to transcend them. Choose wisely. She would have it courier delivered the day she left for North Carolina. The Carolina air wrapped around Sophia like a warm embrace as she followed realtor Elaine Michaels up the weathered wooden steps of a pale blue cottage. Salt-laden breeze ruffled her hair, and seagulls called overhead as Elaine unlocked the door. Now, this one's been on the market for 6 months, Elaine explained, her soft southern accent a pleasant change from Boston's clipped tones. It needs some work, which is why the price is lower than others in the area, but the location is perfect, Sophia finished, stepping into the main living area. The cottage was small, just 2 bedrooms, a combined living and dining area, and a kitchen that had last been updated sometime in the 1990s. But the entire back wall consisted of windows and glass doors that opened onto a deck, offering an unobstructed view of the Atlantic Ocean mere yards away. The foundation is solid, and the roof was replaced 5 years ago, Elaine continued, leading Sophia through the space. But you'd probably want to update the kitchen and bathrooms, maybe replace some windows for better insulation. Sophia barely heard her. She had moved to the glass doors and pushed one open, stepping onto the deck. The rhythmic crash of waves against the shore below called to something deep inside her. She could imagine mornings spent watching the sunrise over the water, evenings spent reading on this deck with the sound of the ocean as her companion. "I'll take it," she said, turning back to the surprised realtor. "Don't you want to see the other properties? There's a lovely one in town with much newer..." "This is the one." Sophia smiled, feeling more certain than she had about anything in years. I can handle the renovations. I want to make it mine. 3 weeks later, Sophia sat at a closing table, signing the final documents that would make the Blue Cottage her new home. Her house in Boston had sold within days, and the Beacon Hill property had gone to the highest bidder, a European tech executive who had paid in cash and agreed to Sophia's condition that the current occupants have 30 days to vacate. She hadn't heard from Amber since their phone conversation, though Martin had informed her that both Amber and Blake had been present when the real estate agent showed the Beacon Hill house. According to Martin, Amber had been pale but composed and had asked no questions. The courier had confirmed delivery of the portfolio and box the day Sophia left for North Carolina. She had no idea if Amber had opened them, read the documents, or followed the trail that would lead her to discover her half-siblings in Arizona, a 17-year-old brother and a 15-year-old sister who had no idea she existed. That knowledge was Amber's to use or ignore as she chose. Sophia had given her daughter the truth. What she did with it was beyond her control. As she signed the final document and accepted the keys to her new home, Sophia felt a weight lifting from her shoulders, a weight she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying all these years. "Congratulations, Ms. Carter," the closing attorney said, shaking her hand. "Welcome to Beaufort." The Blue Cottage needed work, certainly. The kitchen cabinets were dated, the bathroom fixtures were old, and the carpeting in the bedrooms needed to be replaced. But the bones were good, and the view was priceless. Sophia spent her first night in her new home, sleeping on an air mattress in the main room, the glass doors open to the sound of the waves. She woke at dawn, made coffee in the ancient percolator that had been left behind, and took her mug out to the deck to watch the sun rise over the Atlantic. Pink and gold light spilled across the water as dolphins played in the distance. A great blue heron stalked importantly along the shoreline, and the salt air filled her lungs with each breath. "Hello, world," she whispered. "I'm finally here." 6 months passed like a dream. Sophia's days took on a rhythm as natural as the tides that shaped her new landscape. Mornings began with coffee on the deck, watching the ever-changing ocean. Then came walks on the beach, collecting shells and sea glass that she arranged in glass jars throughout the cottage. She hired local contractors to update the kitchen and bathrooms, choosing simple, elegant fixtures that complemented the cottage's beachy charm without trying to make it something it wasn't. She replaced the carpets with pale wooden floors and painted the walls in soft blues and greens that echoed the sea and sky outside. Gradually, she began to meet people. Neighbors walking their dogs on the beach, shopkeepers in town, members of the local historical society. She volunteered at the Maritime Museum 2 days a week, putting her organizational skills to good use, cataloging artifacts and creating educational materials for school groups. She joined a book club that met at the local independent bookstore and found herself laughing more than she had in years as the group debated plot points and character motivations over wine and cheese. She took a watercolor class at the community center and discovered to her surprise that she had a modest talent for capturing the light on water. Most importantly, she began to recognize herself again, not as Amber's mother or David's abandoned wife or the efficient school administrator, but as Sophia, just Sophia with her own preferences, interests, and dreams. She had changed her phone number when she moved, keeping the new one private except for sharing it with Martin and a few old friends from Boston who had reached out with concern when they heard about the canceled wedding. No one from her old life knew exactly where she had gone, just somewhere on the Carolina coast, as she had told those who asked. So when her doorbell rang one crisp October afternoon as she was arranging freshly cut dahlias from the small garden she had planted, Sophia was startled. She wasn't expecting deliveries, and her neighbors usually called before stopping by. She opened the door to find Amber standing on her porch, looking both defiant and uncertain. "How did you find me?" Sophia asked after a moment of stunned silence. "I hired a private investigator." Amber shifted from one foot to the other, her designer boots incongruous on the weathered porch boards. "Can I come in?" Sophia stepped back, wordlessly inviting her daughter into her new home. She watched as Amber took in the space, the comfortable furniture, the artwork Sophia had created herself, the wall of windows framing the ocean view. "It's nice," Amber said finally, sounding surprised. "Different from what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Something sad, I guess." "Like you were hiding." "I'm not hiding, Amber. I'm living." Sophia gestured toward the kitchen. "Would you like some tea? Or there's wine." "Tea is fine." They moved to the kitchen, where Sophia busied herself with the kettle and teapot, giving herself time to process the shock of seeing her daughter standing in her new space. Amber seemed different somehow, less polished than Sophia remembered, with her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and minimal makeup on her face. When the tea was ready, Sophia carried the tray to the deck, where they sat in Adirondack chairs facing the ocean. For several minutes they sipped in silence, watching the waves. "Blake and I broke up," Amber said finally, "after we had to move out of the house." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Amber gave her a sidelong glance. "You never liked him." "I never said that." "You didn't have to. I could tell." Amber set her teacup down. "You were right about him, though. When things got difficult, he changed. He blamed me for losing the house, said I should have managed you better." She laughed bitterly. "As if anyone could manage you." Sophia allowed herself a small smile. "I suppose I did become rather unmanageable." They fell silent again, the rhythm of the waves filling the space between them. "I read everything," Amber said after a while. "About Dad. I even went to Arizona." Sophia turned to look at her fully then. "You did?" Amber nodded, her eyes on the horizon. "I didn't contact him. I just wanted to see him, to see them." She swallowed hard. "They looked like me. Connor and Lily. Same eyes, same chin." "Did they see you?" "No. I just watched from a distance. They were at a soccer game. Lily was playing, and Dad and Connor were cheering from the sidelines." Her voice cracked slightly. "He looked happy, really happy." Sophia reached across the space between their chairs and took her daughter's hand. To her surprise, Amber didn't pull away. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Sorry you had to learn the truth that way. Why didn't you tell me before? All these years, you let me believe he just left, that maybe he'd come back someday. I didn't know the whole truth until I opened that portfolio after the rehearsal dinner," Sophia admitted. "Your grandfather knew, but he kept it from me. I think he was trying to protect us both." Amber nodded slowly. "I've been seeing a therapist. She says I've been angry at the wrong parent all these years." "Amber, no, let me finish. I've been blaming you for everything that was missing in my life, for not being enough, for working all the time when I was little, for not giving me the kinds of things my friends had." She took a shaky breath. "But you were just trying to keep us afloat after he stole everything and left. And instead of appreciating what you sacrificed, I just kept demanding more." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. "We both did the best we could with what we knew at the time. The thing is, Mom, I don't think I know who I am without all that anger." Amber looked at her, vulnerability plain on her face. "I've defined myself by it for so long. I understand that feeling," Sophia said quietly. "I've spent the last 6 months figuring out who I am when I'm not defined by being your mother." "And who are you?" Sophia smiled, gesturing to the cottage, the ocean, the paintings hanging on the walls inside. "I'm still discovering that, but I like who I'm becoming." As evening fell, they moved inside. Sophia prepared a simple dinner of grilled fish and vegetables, which they ate at the small table by the windows, watching as the sky turned from blue to pink to deep purple. Amber helped with the dishes afterward, a domestic scene so ordinary and yet so novel that it made Sophia's heart ache with a bittersweet mixture of joy and regret. "Where are you staying tonight?" Sophia asked as they finished cleaning up. "I got a room at the Seaside Inn in town," Amber replied. "My flight back to Boston is tomorrow afternoon." "Back to work on Monday?" Amber shook her head. I quit my job at the marketing firm last month. I'm doing some freelance design work while I figure out what's next. That sounds like a positive change. It's scary, Amber admitted, but also freeing. Like I'm finally making choices based on what I want, not what I think I should want. They settled in the living room with glasses of wine, the sound of the waves a constant backdrop to their conversation. As they talked, really talked, perhaps for the first time in years, Sophia began to see glimpses of the thoughtful, creative child Amber had been before adolescence, and societal expectations had hardened her into someone striving constantly for external validation. "What you did," Amber said as the evening grew late, "cancelling the wedding, selling the house, it was the wake-up call I needed. I was furious at first, humiliated, but then..." She twisted the stem of her wineglass between her fingers. "Then I realized you were finally treating me like an adult, making me face the consequences of my actions." "That wasn't my intention," Sophia said gently. "I was simply finally prioritizing my own well-being." "I know. And that was the biggest lesson of all." "Asu," Amber met her gaze directly. "Watching you walk away from everything to build this new life, it showed me that it's never too late to start over, to become who you really want to be." When it was time for Amber to leave, they stood awkwardly by the door, the weight of all that had been said and all that still remained unspoken hanging between them. "Can I come back sometime?" Amber asked hesitantly. "Maybe for a weekend next month?" "I'd like that," Sophia said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. "We could explore the town together. There's a wonderful little art gallery I think you'd enjoy." They hugged, a real embrace rather than the perfunctory one they had exchanged at formal occasions in recent years. As Amber walked to her rental car, Sophia called after her. "Amber, that note I sent you with the photograph about every life offering chances to transcend its origins." Amber turned back, her face softened by the porch light. "I have it framed on my bedside table." After Amber drove away, Sophia returned to the deck with her wine. The moon was rising over the water, casting a silver path across the waves. She thought about the strange, winding path that had led her here, from the public humiliation 6 months ago to this moment of quiet contentment. She had lost much: her role as mother of the bride, the Beacon Hill property that had been in her family for generations, the familiar routines of her Boston life. But she had gained something far more valuable: herself. Tomorrow, she would wake to the sound of the waves. She would paint if she felt like painting, walk on the beach if she felt like walking, or simply sit and watch the ocean if that was what called to her. There were no expectations to meet except her own. No emotional minefields to navigate, no pretenses to maintain. And in a month, Amber would return, not as the entitled, angry young woman who had publicly humiliated her, but as someone new, someone still forming, someone who might in time become not just her daughter, but her friend. Sophia raised her glass to the moon. "To new beginnings," she whispered, "and to the wisdom to recognize them when they come." If you've enjoyed this journey of rediscovery and renewal, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like Sophia's to life. Thank you for listening.